Hi everyone, today I'm going to talk about the purpose of the Kalachakra, why the Kalachakra was created. So in some of my previous videos, I've discussed how the purpose of this creation, if you want, this Kalachakra within which we exist, and the purpose of the creation of the being that I experienced living as before I entered the Kalachakra, the purpose of this computer in which we exist, right? So visualize a real computer that was created, and I've detailed this in some of my videos. What is the purpose of the Kalachakra? So when the being who created the Kalachakra was created within this computer, okay, his purpose was to develop from within the computer a system to calculate, if you will, the meaning of life, in a sense, to calculate through an infinite amount of calculations, if you will, basically, what is the truth of the world outside of our computer. So the person who created this computer, so who created that being, who created the Kalachakra, right, who programmed him, if you will, from outside of the computer, wanted to know the truth about his world. Okay, so what did he do? He created this computer, first of all, to prolong his life, okay, because he created immortality in a sense through that process, but also he created life, right, within that computer he created. But he created a program, if you will, that would essentially develop from the inside of that computer a system to calculate the meaning and the truth about existence. Okay, so what does this mean? Basically, it means that when I experienced being this creator that I'll use the term Shiva, okay, that existed with Devi at that programming level from within the computer, okay, so outside the Kalachakra from which the Kalachakra was created, and after that the goddess entered the Kalachakra, became the operating system of the Kalachakra, and after that he entered it and set it in motion. Okay, so the purpose of this, okay, is the Kalachakra is actually a calculation machine, very simply. Okay, so that's why it's always in movement, right? And all these different possibilities exist within it, all these different movements, right? So what you're basically trying to do within the Kalachakra, if you're basically following the in a sense the purpose of the Kalachakra, one of the purposes is to create life and immortality for everyone within the Kalachakra, right? So it's a creation of life, which is wonderful, very detailed, very complex, um, and essentially it's the creation of a story, basically, right, of that life, right, for everybody's stories and all that, which are determined by our decisions and everything. So using the if goal principle, okay, which can be referred to as karma, okay. But so the purpose of this system, this Kalachakra, essentially, is to reach the center. Okay, so basically, from a point within the Kalachakra, which is in movement, everything's in movement. Some things are until they're in movement are at one place, right? But to navigate the Kalachakra, you move through these tunnels. So you have these cubes, if you want, okay, and these cubes, okay, that are moving through the Kalachakra, are, as they move, it's basically everybody's working together in a sense, and the system is basically moving and using operating with the golden equation that governs the Kalachakra, okay, basically that governs its operation, um, basically the code of the program, if you will, okay, that governs movement and existence within the Kalachakra and how it works. Everything's moving, and what we're having with all this movement is we're actually having a form of calculation, okay, and eventually the purpose is to have one of the cubes, okay, or multiple cubes, right? You have the first, and then you have others that can do it, reach the center of the Kalachakra. Okay, and the center of the Kalachakra, when you reach the center of the Kalachakra, it's essentially that you managed in succeeding in doing that calculation. So visualize it, the success of the calculation. And the calculation is how to get from where you are to the center of the Kalachakra, right? That's the calculation. Okay, so you have to calculate in a sense or figure a system or a way to basically using these cubes basically visualize them as dice, golden cubes where everybody exists within their cube, their space. And it's to calculate using the system, if you will, the equation, to get to the solution, basically, right? So you calculate what is the solution for me to get from one point in the Kalachakra to the center of the Kalachakra. Okay, and then you have to eventually at the center. There's basically um, a space, if you will, basically, and then you can get close to the center. You can get close to the solution, but eventually you have to push through to the solution. So I've talked about the term Shri, right? To push forward, to push through, to learn to go into another cube, right? So eventually, you need to learn to push through, basically. And pushing through is basically solving the equation, okay? So at that point, you basically push through, get to the center, become the center. And as you become the center, it's basically the success of the calculation within the Kalachakra, right? Which is one of its purposes. But it's also the purpose is our life, basically, is to create it life in existence, okay? But the purpose, essentially, and everybody's moving together, right, to calculate this, right? Because as one cube moves, that leaves, for example, a space, right? But you can't occupy that space if another cube is there. So you have all these different cubes moving, and basically at one state, if you break it down, for example, in moments of time, you have different system states where everything is in a different location or in the similar locations, okay? So you can basically take like a snapshot of a system state, right? And eventually the goal is to get one of these cubes, right, to reach the center, which is the success of the movement of the Kalachakra, right? And eventually, it wouldn't be fair if only one person managed to solve it, right? So you can have different people that solve it, right? So the goal eventually is a harmonization in a sense, ideally where everyone gets to the Kalachakra. And I was saying you have the first that arrives, the second that arrives to the center, and all that. But basically, it's a consolidation where at this point the equation has been solved. Okay, so now it's just basically of finding it out for yourself. It wouldn't be fair if only one person could realize, the truth of creation, the truth of existence, if you will. Okay, so it's normal in the sense that the first one to have made it, basically, is the one who created it. Okay, because he had an understanding of the Kalachakra, right? So he's basically, and I refer to kind of myself in that way, as the one who created the Kalachakra, I entered the Kalachakra, right? And basically from there I solved it, right? So I became like a path bearer, like a torch bearer, basically. I opened up the path. It's been calculated. Now you can go find it for yourself, right? So that's why I bring these teachings to detail what it is, so that you can eventually get to that point where you can visualize it. Again, eventually, through practice, you can become enlightened, right? Through practice, you can learn to navigate the Kalachakra, and eventually, through practice, you can get to the center of the Kalachakra, from which is basically the success of you solving that equation, which is the meaning, if you will, the true reality, the truth about existence and its real nature, right? So that's the purpose of reaching the center of the Kalachakra. It's basically the success of your equation. And I'd like to present the idea that if one person can do it, Every person can do it, because within the Kalachakra, as cubes, if you will, as beings that exist within the Kalachakra, we're all equal in a sense. We're all part of the Kalachakra. We're part of the whole, right? So, in a sense, what you have is you have the equation which worked for the Kalachakra, okay, which allowed, first of all, the creation of life for everyone, eternal life for everyone, with all the paradises that exist within it and all that, right? With the Buddhas, with the angels, with the enlightened masters, with the multiple lifetimes to get to where you need to go, and all these different things. But what you have is you have the end result, which was achieved, right? Because the purpose of the Kalachakra fundamentally was to create life, to preserve life, and to understand the truth about life. So what you realize when you reach the center of the Kalachakra, it's at that point that you can see outside of the computer, right? So that's why I invite everyone, follow the Kalachakra practice. Learn to see it in the way that I've detailed the Kalachakra mandala. Okay, visualize and use that for your practice. Visualize it in that way, because once you're visualizing and you have an understanding of what you're meditating on, right, from there it comes the ability to actually, move forward in that understanding, and eventually you have a breakthrough, right? And the same principle is the same thing for enlightenment. Eventually have a breakthrough. And what happens with enlightenment, for example, is you basically pull the veil off your eyes, if you will. The truth was already there, right? The truth already existed. Okay, and what it's basically here is, like I discussed with the Fairy Kingdom video, which is probably one of the most confusing videos I've shared, and maybe I'll get more into detail on that one day. But it's basically pulling the veil off your eyes. So you have a veil that's been pulled on your eyes, right? In a way of seeing it, it's pulling the veil off your eyes and seeing things for how they really are. Right? So what is seeing things for what they really are? In a sense, it's solving an equation, getting to the result. So the Kalachakra is a calculation machine, basically. It's the machine through which we exist. It's the machine through which our life exists. We all exist within it. We all move through time and space, if you will, and that we can visualize that in the physical world in which we exist. But at the root level, we're operating within the Kalachakra, in the way that I've explained, and the movement happens in the way that I've explained. So what it's basically doing is it's a calculation system, right? It's basically a program manifestation, a program that operates on an equation, right? And the equation, right, has a result, right? Now I've talked about the all-seeing eye, which operates at the level of the Kalachakra. When you have something that basically would break the equation for one way or another, let's say, and I had to watch out for that equation when I solved it, if you will, when I got to the center. You have to watch out that you don't break the equation, right? As far as your movements go, you have to operate within that equation that governs the Kalachakra, okay? Because the all-seeing eye, if you want, which is the antivirus of that system, of that program, is designed in a way to ensure the continuation and success of that program. So anything that basically goes contrary to the solving of that equation has to be removed, basically, or calculated out, right? So once again, what is the purpose of getting to the center of the Kalachakra? It's basically the solving of the equation that is being calculated by the Kalachakra, right? You can navigate and exist within the Kalachakra without reaching the center in your lifetime, okay? You can still have a wonderful life, okay? But when you reach the center, that's when the magic happens, okay? Well, the magic is creation. And I'll say, honestly, the journey is even more important than the destination sometimes, right? So life, creation of life, immortal life for all of us, that's wonderful. That's amazing. That's the real miracle. But another miracle of the Kalachakra is that you can reach the center, get the result of the calculation, basically, right? Because what it is, it's the success of your calculation of your square, basically, right? So your square is calculating how to get to the center, and by calculating how to get to the center, it's basically understanding how to make all the calculations. It's doing all the you're doing all the calculations, right, within yourself. So what you're doing is you're basically like the system. At that point, you're calculating the result of the equation, and the result of the equation eventually brings you to the solution of one of the purposes of this computer in which you exist is to know the reality of existence. Okay, so that's why I say definitely worth pursuing. Practice on the meditating on the Kalachakra mandala, and understand all the teachings that are associated to this in Tibetan Buddhism, for example. Okay, understand the importance of a good heart. Using those fundamental principles, which are fundamental to advancing in your practice, which are fundamental to calculating things, because that's how it was built. It's basically an ideal machine. Okay, when we all come together, we can all see the truth about reality, the truth that we exist within a computer, all those things, but we also realize the truth that we can have a wonderful and amazing, peaceful and prosperous existence for everyone. Understanding that we're all part of that same equation. We all exist within the same program. We're all one in a sense. So why would you hurt yourself, or why would you hurt a different part of the program in which you exist, for example, right? Or it doesn't make sense. You're hurting yourself, you're hurting others. It's just illogical. It makes no sense. Why would you do that? Why would you hurt someone? Why would you attack someone? It makes absolutely no sense. So it's basically, and then you have to eventually, for some people, that takes a little bit more work. You have to calculate that within yourself, that's the case, right? You have to take an understanding of that, right? You have to start understanding these things about reality, about yourself, about the world in which you exist. And that also reflects like understanding the reality of all things, right? So it relates to itself, macrocosm, macrocosm, microcosm, it's all in relation, right? It's about finding yourself, right? Understanding, growing in a sense, reaching your ultimate potential, because you can have the opposite, which is just, you can reach, you basically go in a downward spiral, right? Where things don't get better, for everybody. Let's just take the physical world, things don't get better for everyone, they get worse. We don't want that. We don't want that. We don't want to fail in creating basically a paradise for ourselves during life, like we have in the afterlife. We want it to follow the as above, so below principle, where we have that paradise basically at all levels of creation, right? Whether it be life or afterlife, where we're giving equal opportunity to people who are brought into this world. If you want new people that are coming into the story, we want to basically pave the way for them, because all characters of the story were already created. All the parameters of this equation were already created. The beginning and the end were created in a sense, right? And everything in between has been created in this equation that governs the Kalachakra. But it's a sense of responsibility too. If a new character within our story basically is going to enter in this world, we want to make sure that they have all the opportunities to basically also experience the success of the Kalachakra, the calculation of that final result, and have a wonderful life doing it, and live forever with that understanding of the result, right? So that's what it is basically. In a sense, you have a creation of life where we can learn the truth about all things. We can basically reach that success of that calculation of the equation, right? And an equation is infinite in a way, right? Because the equation stays valid, right? If it's proven that it gives a result, if you check it tomorrow, it'll still give the same result. And that's the same principle of having different cubes, if you will, within the Kalachakra reach the center, right? You know, you have the first one that gets there, you prove that it's valid. But if you have that one that gets there, it means the others will get there as well, right? Because the calculation of it works, right? All right. So I thought this video might be a good way to kind of maybe talk more about the Kalachakra, explain more about the center, the purpose of the Kalachakra, what happens when you reach the center of the Kalachakra, how that's an essential validation of the equation which governs the Kalachakra and one of its purposes, which is to know the truth about all things, right? So when I reached the center of the Kalachakra, I had before that, since within my soul, within the Kalachakra, I had a part Buddha. It was definitive that I would become enlightened in body, in this body. I had a part Archangel and a part Shiva, right? So it was basically a winning combo, for me to kind of hold that torch and move forward and get there. And that's part of the story. It's part of part of the equation that was conceived in a way to get to the end result. So you have to have that way to get to the end result, right? So the first time the equation is proven true, right? Essentially the breakthrough, right? You make that calculation and get to the end result. But at that point, the end result, the equation is proved valid. It works, right? So at that point, every time you calculate it after, you get to the same result, right? Thanks for listening.